Victoria, 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 Victoria. Victoria Silver Sonic came in. This is kind of like one channel of a 5F6A Bassman, only with 6 V6s and a harmonic trim and reverb. That's as much as I know about this model. That's from looking it up real fast on the internet. No previous experience. The very nice owner of this amp says that this thing has always been blowing fuses and blowing tubes and burning out tubes. And he brought it to another tech who said it's normal, the tubes just drifted. Well, those tubes have been drifting an awful lot, and he didn't think that sounded right, and I'm inclined to believe him. So let's take a look and see what we got here. Rear panel off, no shielding, but nice, neat work. All right, I'm gonna do a quick look through, and then I'll point out anything that I see that might be obviously wrong. Well, the tungstol 6V6s and yellowed, discolored. That one's kind of yellow. That one's faded brownish red logos. Those used to be white, so that's not a good sign. I'm going to have to go through here and take some measurements. Everything looks very neat. You can see that this is not a monster cable plug, unlike the last one that came in. That was obviously not Victoria doing that. It's a good looking build if you like orange. Those orange drops are fine choices. These are all the SBEs, which are the good, really, they're all fine caps, but I like the SBEs and the other polyester series more than the polypropylenes. And there's a happy little smiley face inside. Let's see if we can make this amp live up to that happy smiley face. Well, there are some unlovely connections that don't seem to be original down here on the rectifier tube socket, where the red and blue wires connect with this little bit of heat shrink. I don't see the heat shrink used anywhere else in the amp, and I don't know if these diodes on the rectifier tube are original. Given the sloppiness of the connections, I don't think so. I think someone was trying to troubleshoot why this amp was blowing rectifier tubes, as it was blowing rectifier tubes and power tubes. And they added these diodes, which is a really good idea to help rectifier tubes out. It's got a Sovtech in there right now. I think that should be redone neatly just to match the rest of the amp. But more worryingly, here's a 470 ohm 2 or 3 watt resistor here. And there's another one here. These are the screen grid resistors. And this one measures 470 ohm, but this one measures 13 meg. And you can maybe see some discoloration on there. I'll give you a close-up view of that. But yeah, that screen grid resistor is opened up. So this tube has not been working at all. And this tube has been getting all of the current from the bias supply. I imagine both tubes are toast as a result. So before I do anything else, I will be putting in a working new pair of 3 watt 470 ohm screen grid resistors. I will make sure that this belt and socket hasn't developed any conductive problems, though that's pretty rare in these with these Michael X, and put a different pair of 6V6s in. Because of this condition and the extreme discoloration on the print on the glass, I don't think that these 6V6s are even worth trying. And I'll clean up this wiring down here as well. At that point, the thing I'm going to be checking for first is to make sure that neither of these caps here on the phase inverter output are leaking. It's unlikely. It's very unlikely with these 600 volt caps, but it's possible because if there's a leak of positive DC from the plate to this side where it should be negative DC, I want to make sure that both these points, which are the grids feeding the output tubes, are the exact same negative and that there's no leaking voltage here. And I will do that with the tubes pulled after I redo those screen connections and the rectifier stuff. Now I see why the previous tech put on that shrink wrap to cover up the melted insulation, but I can redo this without either. There's nothing wrong with shrink wrap, but the rest of the app doesn't have any. So if I can make this visually match everything and know that I have much better connections than there were in here as I found it, I'll be a happy camper. Before I rebuild everything, I'm going to get all the old excess solder off because just gobs and gobs of solder are on here and really bad connections on these diodes. You know, when there's a standard of workmanship that you find in this case in a Victoria, but if an amp's really well built and you work on that amp, you have a responsibility to maintain that same level of craftsmanship, of skill. And if you cannot, don't learn on a customer's amp. High watts are the extreme of that, where you have to replicate what Harry Joyce did in 1969. There is a skill set, and if yours is not advanced enough, it's better to decline a job than to do stuff like this. And this was not even what I would consider a shit show, as many amps are. This was just not up to par. All right, as you can see, everything is off the rectifier tube socket. All the old solder's been removed. Everything cleaned up with some ISO, no old flux, ready to rebuild. And I also removed the screen grid resistors, though that was a little bit less dramatic. So I'm ready to repopulate all this stuff and do it right. All right, everything's cleaned up down here at the rectifier socket. No more ugly heat shrink, and I know that all the solder joints are good and all the connections are secure. And the new screen grid resistors are in place. Some Vishay low mass 3-watt 470 ohm wire wounds. Those should not ever fail unless there's a dramatic failure in a power tube, which can happen. By the way, I have checked and verified that this amp has the correct 3-amp fuse. Speaking of such things, let me show you one other thing right before I power it up, though. This is something that's all too common, where the cords come in and they've been tied in knots. And that's not the way to treat your power cables. And once they do this, they get memory and they get kinks, and it gets worse and it gets worse and it's worse. But I'm going to take this and stand about 10 feet back and try to unwind this and get it to lay flat. And maybe I'll show everyone how to store a power cable the same way you were to wrap an instrument cable or a mic cable. There are the right ways to do it, and there are wrong ways, and way too many people do them instinctively the wrong way. And you just have these awful kinks that build up like this. If you do it the right way, not only do you not have those kinks and everything lays pretty much flat, but you won't damage your cables in the process. So anyway, let me undo the worst of this cable right here and plug it in, and we'll go to the next step. Well, here we go. I got a test pair of old RCA 6v6s in there. They're very rugged, not exceptionally well matched, but with the amp bias at its minimum range, I've got about 46% idle dissipation right now with the wall at 116. I'm not going to worry about dialing in the actual bias or using the Variac to get 120 volts to do that until I get the replacement 6v6s. But before I get the replacement 6v6s, I want to make sure there's not something in here which has been causing 6v6 failures. I suspect that the problem might have been a failing rectifier tube which damaged 6v6. They did the work on the rectifier socket and put a new tube in, did not know that there was damage to the 6v6, so even though they fixed the rectifier tube issue, that 6v6 continued to fail and took out a screen grid resistor, and then someone put in another pair of 6v6s, but it didn't have a screen grid resistor on one side, so the new pair started to accelerate their demise. But I need to let this run for a while and be sure. Let's see what it sounds like in general. And it's got that CTS volume issue where there's nothing, and that comes on. I'm playing all dainty like because I don't want to blow out this mic I'm using for voiceover. It's not really set up to handle even the output of a 20-watt amp right in front of it. Tremolo seems a bit noisy. It's got some DC on that pot, I think. Might just be dirty. Some thumping. So I'm going to check what this pot is actually doing. It's kind of noisy. Is there a bad tube somewhere? Let's see. Is it just in the tremolo? That's unusual. Let me take a look into that. So I'm looking around through the amp to see if there's anything else that could contribute to a failing output tube. And I noticed this non-original speaker. The amp would have come with an Eminence. It's got a Jensen C12Q in there. Nothing wrong with that. But whoever changed out this speaker, man, that soldering there is just the shits. So that's going to have to get changed out. So. And the wire is a bit short, so I'm going to get some good quality wire in there. While I do this, I want to mention that I was watching Jason Tong, Headfirst Amplifications, quite excellent video yesterday where he was going through a 1987 Marshall 800 circuit. Not 800 circuit, sorry, 87. Anyway, sorry, I'm doing too many things at once. And one of his commenters said it was nice that Jason was so positive and wasn't throwing the other tech under the bus, the previous guy. And in Jason's case, well, I suspect he is actually a very nice person. Possibly nicer even than I am. The previous tech in his case had done a pretty good job, so there's nothing to complain about. But as far as throwing people under the bus, I don't do that. I just look under the bus. And there, sometimes that's where they are. They put themselves there. I am not Captain Negative. I do think that my clients deserve good work and good sounding, reliable amplifiers. And if that sounds outrageous to you, well, then I'm not the tech for you. Sorry, good luck with the other guys hanging out under buses. Anyway, we're going to stop right here. I'm going to get some proper speaker wire ordered at the same time that I ordered the new 6v6s for this amp. And I expect this amp will have a very long, healthy life in the future. Oh, by the way, none of the hardware holding this new speaker in place was tight either. So, again, lots of people underneath that bus.